You're listening to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast with Debbie Sasson, episode 119. Welcome to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Debbie Sasson. I went from being a financial advisor, author, and chronic under-earner to building my business to six figures as a financial planner and money mindset coach, and then onto multiple six figures as a full-time money and business coach. I help entrepreneurs create money-making businesses and build wealth using sales and money mindset strategies and in alignment with authentic Jewish values. Now, let's dive in to today's show. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm excited to share with you an interview with my client, Raizy Janklowicz. I'm going to introduce Raizy in a moment, but I have two important announcements to make. The first one is that this podcast episode is going to be split into two podcasts. Today, you're listening to the interview that I'm doing with my client, Raizy, and next week is going to be my takeaways from this interview. And the interview is long, and there's so much value that you can get by listening to this interview, having your takeaways and applying it to your life. And I think there are just so many golden nuggets that I want to share with you that next week I'm going to do probably a little bit of a shorter episode, but I want to make sure that I highlight everything that you can take away and that you can apply in your business. And when I make it very structured like that, I think it will be more impactful for you and how you approach your business, how you learn from Raizy's business growth over the last 5 months of being in Wired for Wealth. And then you'll be able so much more easily to apply her growth to your business. So that's number one. Number two is that Wired for Wealth enrollment for the March cohort is now open. I am onboarding clients between now and March 18th. And when you join Wired for Wealth at this time, you become a lifetime member of the only group coaching program for Jewish women in the industry that works on your sales strategy, your money mindset, healing your relationship with money, and business mentorship to make sure that you bring your God-given gifts to the world, serving your clients the best way you know how to, and you stop procrastinating, you stay in action, you change your thoughts about money and the amount of money you charge. And if this has been speaking to you, and I know people have been reaching out to me telling me they're thinking about it, they want to know when the next enrollment period is, now is your time. Go to my website, debbiesasson.com/wealth, and sign up for a sales call because I would love to have you in this program. You have so much gifts, talent, and that desire, that dream that is in your heart and on your mind. It's time to bring it to the world. So go to my website and sign up, and I look forward to seeing you inside. All right, let's jump into the podcast with my client, Raizy Janklowicz. Raizy is a lactation consultant, IBCLC certified, and she's a postpartum life coach. She helps new moms and babies on the breastfeeding and bonding journey. Postpartum struggles can cause pain, confusion, and overwhelm instead of the joy and gratitude and love that every new mother dreams of. So Raizy is your best address for changing your relationship with your nursing baby, right from struggling, and helping you to achieve that dream relationship, that unique, personalized relationship that you have always wanted. Raizy's approach is personalized to you. And when you go to the show notes, you will find out how you can get in touch with Raizy. All right, my friends, let's dive in. I'm here with my client, Raizy Janklowicz, who is a lactation consultant and a life coach. Raizy joined Wired for Wealth in September, and in the last 5 months, she has made so many amazing accomplishments in her business, who she has become. She's really the CEO of a growing business, which is so different from where she was in the beginning. And I can't wait for you to hear her journey and experience all of her growth. So welcome, Raizy.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here.
Thank you very, very much for joining us. And why don't you just go ahead? I know I gave a very brief, introduction to who you are. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you started in your business. I know when we started working together, you were actually partially, self-employed and partially you were also employed. So give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
I really, first and foremost, I consider myself wife and mother of six, Baruch Hashem, all ages and stages. I always like to tell this to people whenever my baby turned two, like I was always like, I had this itch, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, so what am I going to do now? Like that was, and so in the beginning, I started out interestingly with a BA in education. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, because, 20 years ago when I graduated school, like you have to go for education. That's what all nice Jewish girls did. I ended up in the classroom, I think maybe two or three different times, and I hated it so badly. I was
Wow.
like, I just I didn't like all the rules that I had to follow. I didn't like the structure. I didn't like what I was seeing, the way kids, like, I didn't think that kids were being treated the way I thought they should be treated. And I was very low on the totem pole of the hierarchy in the school. So I was just had to follow along. And I was like, I don't know, if I'm going to do something, it's probably not going to be this, but it brought in some money and it was nice. My husband at that time was like learning student and he was thinking about work, but it wasn't yet really so much on the radar. And then I was having my children. And then I had this ad just like fell in my lap that a local agency that helps postpartum families is looking for what they called a peer counselor. And I was like, this is so, 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 so cool because I was like enamored by anything women related, whether it was birth, whether it was breastfeeding, whether it was, and because at that point I had my third baby already and I had had my fair of nursing struggles. And I had read every book out there. There were no, in my community, there wasn't a lot of resources when it came to nursing. And
Okay.
so I was reaching out in the wider world for help. And I just kept feeling like nobody gets this, nobody understands me. So here was like in my community, this opportunity to find out more. I didn't really know what it was. I was like, I don't know, I'm in, let me find out. And that bug inside of me was like, go find out. So I went and came to the meeting, and there were like 15 women by the table. And we all had to say why we thought we were the best candidate for the job. And I was like, I don't know, I'm so embarrassed. Like, what do I say? But I just stood up and it just came from my heart. And I just said, like, I just love to help women. I love everything women related. I want women to feel good and taken care of. And I want to understand more. And they were like, you have the job on the
Wow.
spot,
I love it.
basically.
Really?
It was amazing. It was like, basically, it was like a lot of the women weren't sure why they were there. And I hadn't been sure either. But then it was like, okay, now I know I am here. And I stayed there for 10 years. And in those
Mm.
10 years, I learned from some of the like top people in the field. I saw like the most amazing things, the most amazing transformations. I was loving it. I was really enjoying it. The beautiful part of it was that it was flexible. I didn't have a very high idea of how much money I wanted to make then. Able to bring my babies with me to work and nurse them, which was a big priority for me. And yeah, it was amazing, amazing time. And I think that what started happening, and like Debbie, like you always say, like when your growth just starts happening, you almost can't stop it. Like you just, it starts, like it happens to you almost. And I started realizing that I wanted to know more than what was just available for me in those walls of that clinic. And even though my teachers were amazing and I wanted to keep learning from them, I really felt that these mothers who were coming in so overwhelmed, so stressed out, sometimes with two or three toddlers with them, they were leaving with practical advice, but they were still worn out. They were not very hopeful that they would succeed.
So these women would come into the clinic, and this was a clinic specifically for helping women to nurse their babies for lactation consulting.
Exactly. So that what's interesting that you're asking because it's actually a program that's meant for nutritional awareness for
Okay.
families of low income. So the mothers would come with their babies, and we were supposed like our job was to go out and scout out the breastfeeding moms in the rooms and just get them in conversation, ask them how their nursing's going, and invite them into the lactation consultant's office. And once we would start talking, then they would start saying, well, I am in a lot of pain. Or they would say, well, my baby's not gaining, or I'm supplementing a lot of formula. And very often the tears would come so fast. Like
Mhm.
suddenly they were overwhelmed when a minute before they were trying to hold themselves together. Just that womanly compassion one to another, like it would just open them up. And that was our job. Like we were, so then we would bring them in, and I worked for a senior lactation consultant, and she would do the work. I would just observe. I would like, fill up the bottles and warm the things up and keep the other kids busy, but I always had my eye on what was going on. And I remember the feeling like looking at her and saying, when someone walks into the room, I almost feel like she knows the issue before she even hears the story. Like, will I ever be able to do that? Will I ever be able to like know before? And it was like this drive started driving in me, like, I'm going to learn this really well and I'm going to get really good at this. And so, yeah, so these women would come and then we would weigh their babies and we would watch them feed. And then they would just be very overwhelmed. Many times we would send them home with like a big clunky pump and lots of instructions. And like I said, many times kids of all ages, we would have to check in with them like a week later, 2 weeks later, and they were like, we didn't really do what you said. We just can't. It's so overwhelming.
I remember that big clunky pump with my with my first child, my daughter, and it turned out that at least some of my kids that I tried to give formula to, they only two of them, they were very, very allergic to the soy-based formula. We have lactose intolerance in the family, so I didn't even try the dairy formulas. I went straight to the soy, and my oldest like threw up her guts. There was like nothing left in her system because her body had to get rid of the soy. And so then when I went back to work, it was clear that I was going to have to, express milk for my baby. So I remember borrowing a clunky pump that made so much noise. Yeah. And just like
when we hear that noise, we get like that feeling of
yeah, those old clunky things would give you horrible headaches. It's like it was more stress and overwhelm on what a woman is already experiencing.
Totally. And I felt that like we were giving her literally a page of instructions and she would go home and we were supposed to be the support people. Like I had a partner, we worked together, but I felt at such a loss. Like they would call me and I kept on feeling like there's this brick wall. Like we're telling them, and then there's like this brick wall, and I have to just throw my hands up and say, I guess it doesn't work for you. I didn't know even what to say. It was so uncomfortable. It was so not, I would say like, okay, come down again. So, but I started having these like thoughts in my mind of like, what do I want to do differently for women? What do I want to give them that they're not getting yet over here? And then like some people, COVID brought many very interesting things into their lives. And the same happened for me because our agency closed down. It's actually interesting that they never actually reopened all the way. And suddenly people started calling me. They had my numbers because I was officially like on call all the time. I had to carry a cell phone with me and answer my phone all the time. Now, mind you, this was for $19 an hour.
Whoa. And I want you to know that you beat me. Okay. Because no, when I left my job, it was also a government job. You're working for an agency. I was working in Israel at the Bank of Israel. And when I left, and I went to work in financial planning, my first client paid me $25 an hour. So you beat me. $19 an hour is, you're under earning, right? You're under earning, but you just like take that first job and let somebody pay you just the minimum of the minimum.
Totally. And maybe by the time I left, it was like 21. It could be, but like, wow. But yeah, whatever. This is what it was. And the point was very interesting that the agency claimed that they were wanting the breastfeeding numbers to go up. And like, this is what they were claiming, but they weren't actually putting enough money into the program in order for it to be what it needs to be that, like to be there, not for us to be there for these women. So what happened is that when COVID struck, everything closed down. And I would say like that, it was like March time when COVID sort of, closed us down. And then in the summer, people started reaching out to me. They had their numbers. I had my baby, a COVID baby. I haven't had help. I haven't had support. And I was like so weary, but my supervisor said I could actually see these women. So with all the precautions necessary, they would come over to my home. And I was like very hesitant. I didn't know how much I want to say I know or not. And I would just like give them basic advice. I would say like, I can check your baby's mouth. I can tell you basically if that makes you feel better. And the sheer amount of women that just wanted to come and have someone talk to them about their struggles was amazing. Yeah. And it was still the $19 an hour. So what happened was very interestingly, as that was moving on, I started, again, that bug started talking to me and I started saying, I don't know. I think that I have something here and I need to develop this and do something more that's going to bring me more satisfaction, more income. My children were growing up. At that point, I had 2 kids in high school. And my husband at that point was at a job in a school that was struggling to stay open. And expenses, everybody knows what it costs, summer camp, then school again. It was like this cycle that like, we're going to get to the next month and it's going to be better the next month and it's going to be better the next month. Mm-hmm. And it was really draining. I respected my husband's decision that he wanted to teach and I wanted to help him, but it was really hard to see myself in a different light. And then I got sent a real blessing. My delicious daughter, who's turning 3, showed up, thank God, beautifully in our lives. And she went on to have some of the worst feeding issues that I had ever encountered.
I know with your first one, you struggled. Your first baby
I struggled with my first, my second, my third, my fourth. I
Oh,
struggled with all of
wow.
them. They each had different diagnoses. My first one, I starved completely without knowing for 6 weeks. And my second one had severe tongue tie issues. I nursed him until he was 3, but he gave me blisters and breast infections. Like I could still remember the pain. And my third one failed to grow. When she was 17 months, a lactation consultant looked me in the eye and said, your skin and the pH balance of her saliva just don't
Wait, that was
make.
when your baby was 17 months?
Yes, 17 months. I struggled. I
Wow.
was going from one person to the next to try. She wasn't gaining weight. She was just tiny
Wow.
and getting sick a lot. That was my third. My fourth was sensory overload baby. She just screamed no matter what we did. And then came my youngest baby, and she just presented with one issue after the next. She couldn't eat. She literally couldn't eat. She would scream and scream and scream, and she would wake up with white, dry diapers in the morning. And I had all my contacts and all my people. And in the beginning, you know how it goes. People said, oh, it's normal. You know, this is how it goes in the beginning. You just have to hang in, you know. And then when my mother's intuition said, and my professional hat said, this is not normal. And then I started reaching out here and there and everywhere. And I just said, I'm going to find an answer for this kid. It just didn't make sense. And I was led from one to the next to the next. And along this journey, I met some of the most wonderful people that taught me what could be happening besides for the practical things that we see in front of us, what's happening to a mother when she's struggling, what's happening to a baby when a baby's struggling at the breast, what that means, what the implications are, and what we see literally happening to the baby from the struggle. And it just started clicking, like those pieces just started clicking in my brain. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to teach women about this amazing experience. And like I tell people, like I call myself like beyond the latch or holistic approach. There's so much more to know. She's now 3, and I would say that when she was about a year and a little bit, when her feeding issues got under control, I told my husband I'm open for business, and I started to see people privately in my home if they called me, and they were calling me, and I said, okay, great, you can come over. I was nervous because I didn't have my official certification yet. So I decided to myself, I'm going to work towards my certification. I threw myself back into studying. I had to do some more prerequisites. And then I got the opportunity to take the exam online, which was super exciting. And I just jumped in. I booked the date and I took out all my books and I was like, I'm going to do this. So that was about 2 years ago now. And I was charging people maybe like $120, $150 for this visit that they would come. And then I wanted to give them follow-up support. So I was, talking to them on the phone hours and hours and hours. And it was really draining me, obviously, because I wasn't having clear guidance on which is business and which is like how to make a proper relationship with my clients. And it was just all over the place. And I was still working for the agency. So they were sending me people also, and they weren't open. So it was everything based at home. So then began like, do I see them during the day? Do I send my baby to a babysitter? So all that conflict that us mothers start, have when we move out of that flexible zone started coming up for me. And I was like, hey, I really need to think about this. I really need to think about this. But like this passion inside of me was so strong. I was like, I need to share this with people. I just need to share this with people. So
For so many women who are running businesses, right? And we could just hear it in your voice. Your heart is huge. Your heart is so, so big, Raizy, for our children. And that figuring out that balance when you're running a business, where do I put the boundaries? Like, yes, I'm here. I could serve. I can help so many women, but my kids also need me at night when you're teenagers, right? I know about teenage girls and
right.
boys, right? They only want attention at like 10, 11, midnight. They don't want attention at like 7 or at 4 in the afternoon. It's such a hard balancing act. And
It's such a hard
finding the
balance.
right boundaries is crucial for your sanity, the way you're present with your family when you're with your family, and also the way you're present with your clients. And your head isn't always like ping-ponging between what am I supposed to be doing now? Is it the laundry? Is it the homework with my child? Is it helping the woman? And you and I have talked about this, like, when are you Hatsala? When are you the first responder, right? And you're the compassionate woman who can help. And when you're the business owner who's charging for what she's doing and not spending hours and hours on the phone when your kids also need you.
Yeah. And yeah, I can still feel it like body wise in my chest, like that feeling of like telling my kids that someone's coming. And I would make it like dramatic, like this mother, she has this little baby that's crying. But I could feel it till today, like closing that door on them. And like, I needed to build myself from somewhere. And, I kept trying to center myself, like in the long run, this is good for them. I'm giving them me for so much of the day. Like this is a little part that's just for this development of myself, but it was it was a real work. And just to throw in, I don't even know if I ever told you this, but it just came to me right now because that room that I now see my clients in middle of this whole mess, like I think it was right before COVID time. So like 4 years ago, I actually started a retail business for children's clothing in my guest bedroom of my house. Like
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
randomly. Yeah, I don't think I've spoken about that in a while. At one point when I was struggling, like leave the agency, not leave the agency, this is like, before I had that shift, I have to convince mothers to do something that's so hard for them. Let me rather sell children's clothing. Everybody wants to buy children's clothing at a cheap price. It was really complicated. I had to import it from Israel. We had to start the whole thing with like taxes and border control and customs. I was driving to expos in different cities and I was losing money. We ended up having to take out a loan to pay it back. So that was like for a good year and a half. I tried. Yeah, like,
It's crazy, crazy story.
It's crazy. At the end, I remember I just packed up everything that was left over and just gave it to a chesed organization. And I was like, I'm going to lend whatever money I need to pay this guy and just, I'm done. And that's when I realized I don't want to be selling dresses. So not me. Like it was just so not me. And I want to be helping mothers. So back to that, as I was trying to figure out this struggle, I would say that I joined Wired for Wealth in September of this year. So it was probably about the summer, July, August was actually already pretty busy. Let's say it's a year now from end of the winter time when I really started like noticing my name is out there. People are finding me. And I started to, as you said, be very overwhelmed. I was not charging enough money. And I was just seeing people random. Oh, I could only come at night. Oh, sure, come at night. That type of thing. When it came to the summertime, like August, I started having these thoughts in my mind that this needs to change. And I was like, what's our plan? We don't have one. Okay. I have this gift to give the world. It's worth a lot of money. And let me do this in a way where I feel more like this is my work. This is my family. This is my income because it's worth what it is. And yeah, I saw your workshop somewhere and you remember I jumped in literally from 1 minute to the next.
You did.
And I haven't looked back. Right. I'm just moving forward from there. And where I am now is that I have a private practice where I see mothers in their own homes. I'm able to charge enough money now that I can travel to them and make it worth it for me to go to where they're comfortable and help them. I help them through. I give them lots of support. I also offer one-on-one coaching for mothers who need more support, that first 2 weeks of support. And I give classes and where I teach all my passion. I just give it out to the women. I teach them everything I want them to know about nursing. And that's my series that I give at this point. With the help of Wired for Wealth, I am up to my third round for this year, actually.
Amazing. So. Right. And you've also studied life coaching, right? So you bring some of your life coaching into, right, in between COVID and everything else. You also threw into your like pot of stew there. You added some life coaching. So when you work with your clients for, what is it? Is it 4 weeks or 6 weeks? How long do you work with them for?
So when I do my longer term package is actually right now 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we made it 8 weeks. What's interesting is that in this journey, like I said before, I don't like coming against brick walls. And that's one of the things that I tell my clients, like there are answers and you deserve to have those answers. And like, I don't know, or we just can't figure a medical mystery doesn't work in my book. I don't like those type of answers very much when I could help it. I felt that I needed more tools to give that over to my mothers in a way that wasn't threatening. I felt like I was being too much of a preacher, of a consultant, giving instructions. I felt that made women be guarded. Like I would notice their body language get like tense. And so going for the coaching training, which was about also a year's time, was so helpful and just opening my eyes to things that really I knew it, but I just wasn't 100% bringing it to my conscious mind, how to speak to them, how to, bring out from them what they really want to tell me. Like when I see that look on their face and like, when I say pumping 8 times a day and they're like, just to help them find their own answers, because I know that the power of coaching and them finding their own answers is so valuable. So I feel that my coaching training, that's what it did for me. It helped me understand them better, relate to them better. And in the long run, I think help them have longer results. They feel more comfortable. What I noticed reaching out post the initial struggle to reach out to me and say like, this is still going on. And what do you think we could do about it? Whereas in the past, what I found was that they needed to keep finding a way to sabotage their success with the nursing. Like they would keep calling me and say like, it was better for 2, 3 weeks, but now I'm in pain again. Or I just can't seem to figure it out. Like they were trying to reach out. They themselves weren't sure what they were looking for support for. When I noticed that pattern, that's when I'll ask a client if they're interested in a different conversation about what else might be going on for them in their life that's causing them to feel they need to still hold on to this struggle. And it really adds a different dimension to this lactation field where, some people are like in and out, like a clinician. It gives them that longer result, that understanding that there's something deeper for them going on. Many times, many women, they'll come to me like it's their fourth baby. Their oldest could be like 5 years old or 4.5 years old. And the first thing they'll tell me is like, I don't know how I got here. And they're looking for the support. They didn't process. Maybe it's a hard birth. Maybe it was a loss of a close person within the time, or maybe it's just plain overwhelmed. Maybe they're holding down a job. I had one mother tell me that she wanted the nursing to work as long as she was managing. And when I asked her what managing meant to her, she said something like, well, the house has to be clean, the dishes have to be washed. I don't know, she threw some other things in there. And I was thinking like, wow, how soon after birth do you have to have all that done, And she was being so, hard on herself. So unraveling that for her was so freeing. And whether or not she nursed was her own decision, but it was more the empowerment as a mother for her to look at her story and say like, wow, this is that one's idea, like to shelve it out, to file. And I see in my clients that transformation of them getting back their strength, getting back their voice. And it's really powerful.
So this is something that's interesting that I want to go into a little bit more deeply because right through the process of coaching and through the power of coaching, right, when you're helping your clients to find their own answers, so then they take charge, more self-leadership, more self-determination. And I'm curious how a woman who's in the situation where she can benefit from coaching. Now, you only dealing with women who are right after birth, like within the first few months after birth? Do you deal with women whose youngest is 2 or 3 or 4? How would somebody know that she would be in a situation where she could benefit from coaching? Because when you tell me a woman is saying, how did I even get here? It's almost like she might think there's no answer. She might just feel very boxed in and doesn't realize that there is, like, someone could throw her that like life preserver.
Right, exactly. What's so interesting is that what has happened over the last, I would say, let's say year, but let's say more in the last 7, 8 months, is that I did get a sort of a name where people call me when they have older babies who are, they call it sudden refusal of the breast or sudden like feeding issues. Like suddenly my baby stopped refusing to eat. Very typically 7 months old, to be like between 7 and 9 months old. And in the beginning, it scared me a lot because it's a very big challenge to get a baby that's 7 months old. Like they already know why they don't want to nurse it. They're not nursing.
They're just interested in what's going on during the day at home. It's just way more interesting.
That's number one.
They're distracted.
They're distracted. That's for babies who are not dealing. But like the ones who come to me, like they're talking about, like I've seen kids, they look very, very undernourished. Like their eyes are like very popping out. Their cheeks are like sunken in a little bit. They have a certain look where they're like long, they grow tall, which for the doctors is fine. So they're actually gaining weight, but they're very skinny. Like they don't have fat around their wrists. They don't have fat on their thighs. It's like a very typical, and for me, specific look that I see when I see these type of kids. And they literally look like they have a fear of the breast. That is what it looks like. They come close to their mothers and they just need to get away. And so very interestingly, it became very common in our society to call anytime a baby like arches backwards, we call that reflux. Like that looks like we say reflux baby. And what I learned actually is that when a baby is doing that at the breast, that's actually a baby who's stuck in their startle reflex, like their Moro reflex. They're like flight or fight mode. And a 7 or 9 month old shouldn't be startling really at all. Right. And so that started showing me and telling me this baby has been in panic mode for a while. Like it's not something that just happened. So why I'm saying that is because when you say, how does a woman know if they need help? So there's one group of women that will come to me with a problem that has been lingering for a long time, and they've been trying to get over it with well-intentioned help from people around them. And then at one point where it explodes or where it just becomes that brick wall comes is like their baby's not eating. Literally, it could be 24, 36, 48 hours and the baby's not taking any food, not from the breast, not from the bottle. And they get so scared. So that's like one group of women that come to me, and it's quite clear that they'll need extra help. So it's like the prolongedness of the challenge.
Okay.
And the other one that I try to open up other group of women that would know for themselves, like maybe I need something deeper, is I teach my women to listen very clearly to their inner voice, to get very familiar with their inner voice. And when they feel some type of contradiction or restriction or constriction, that's when I recommend to them, why don't you look at that a little deeper? Because like I've helped many women in such feelings actually wean their babies, which in that case was the best situation for the mom and the baby because the mother was holding on to some type of pain. Sometimes it's the loss of a loved one, like I said before. Very often it could be holding on to a story like a failed attempt at nursing in a previous baby. And they bring that with them, like those negative beliefs, like I'm not good at this or I'm a failure. So I help women to understand, or if a woman is trying to understand for herself, if she's hearing those messages in her mind, like a lot, like this is never going to work, I'm in too much pain to even think of nursing my baby. Babies who dread the next feeding because it's just feeling unpleasant and uncomfortable for them. Women who are just constantly finding that struggles are showing up again and again without, no matter what they're trying to do. Like these are really the red flags that would tell a woman, you know, maybe you want to go a little deeper and find out maybe it's what I call beyond the latch. Maybe there's something deeper because super common. Women who get infections very often, recurring infections, they very often are holding on to grief and they haven't mourned something in their life again and again. I see women, you know, choosing to let go, choosing to do the work and let go, and resolving that recurring. So we would say something recurring or something very prolonged for a very long time is a great opportunity to go get more answers.
Amazing. I want to shift the focus a little bit now because you speak with so much knowledge, so much heart. I mean, I could just hear with the enthusiasm in your voice and how much you just care about your clients and their babies, like even helping a woman choose to wean her baby. There's just so much of you that you pour into your clients. But now let's talk about how much you've poured into yourself over the last 5 months in terms of you as a businesswoman, as a business owner, right? Becoming the CEO of your business. Because as we mentioned a few minutes ago, we can just pour and pour and pour into other people. And then we don't take care of ourselves. We don't take care of our business, the boundaries, making sure that you make the money that your business needs to carry on. So let's talk about that side of you that has grown and developed so much in the last several months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that what's super interesting when you're talking, I'm like thinking, I thought in the very beginning that it has to be contradictory. Like this woman who's in charge of her business, I can't stay with that level of compassion. I can't stay with that level of passion in my work. If I'm a CEO, like in my mind, it just didn't click. It didn't go together. Like bringing in the money and being busy with the numbers just didn't feel like it could jive, like they could go flow nicely together. I'll admit it, I was scared in the beginning. I felt all my inner child fears coming up every time I made another dollar. It was like hyperventilating. I couldn't handle it. Every time I got phone calls, like I would have like a really busy week and I would feel like so shut down after that. Like I realized that I needed to speak with that little girl inside of me and have a real conversation with her and explain to her what's happening. That's what I teach to my clients. Like, talk to your baby. They know what you're saying. So what's clear for me, and I spoke about the inner voice before, is that I'm such a believer in the inner voice and our intuition and like really my body mind connection. Like my body always gives me signals, always. Mm-hmm. So it's just about listening to them.
You're very, very intuitive. Not everybody's wired that way. I mean, God made each one of us with a different, nature, nurture, whatever, but I know that you're incredibly intuitive.
Yeah. Like to not be intuitive for me is it doesn't work. It doesn't work. For me, it doesn't let me continue my growth. Like every time I want to go up a level, I know that I have this time where I have to stop and introspect and think and talk it through. Really look at my thoughts like you taught us to do and see what negative message am I giving myself about a woman who makes money and is also a loving mother. I had a lot of resistance from the people around me, not my personal family, but I've had friends who had a hard time with this change in me. And like, I don't think I changed so much on the outside or at all. It's just my mindset has shifted. And when I saw that I was able to be there for my women and charge them the money that helps them to understand the value of what I'm giving them,
Okay.
then it just gave me the permission to keep going because like you taught us, like my family is my first value.
Right.
And to live in stress and struggle about where the next dollar is coming is not a healthy way to raise my family because I want to be able to give them what they need and I don't want to stress about it.
Right.
And so when I see that the freedom and the abundance and the gifts that come into my life when I open up and notice my own deserving and notice that, you know, like again, those thoughts that need to be worked through, that not deserving, yes, deserving, then it just gives me the push, it gives me the encouragement to keep going towards it because I'm able to start like feeling it and embodying it, like the freedom and the like it makes me be more aware and grateful of what I do have in my life. So it's not that some people may be mistaken. Like once you get into business and you know you make a certain amount and you want more. It's not that you want more. It's that you become more. Like you become bigger. You expand. Like you start
Right.
to allow in more. And I think that was also scary for me because I have other support people. Like I do my own other coaching work, and I'm always like proud to say that to people. I have my own coach. I have my own mentors. Do not hesitate to reach out to. I think that being a woman, a Jewish woman, mother of six, wife, and CEO of a business is a lot of stuff.
It is.
And
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm aware of that. Like where I'm at right this minute is this balance between taking a step back, allowing myself to have breaks, and still at the same time be able to move ahead and embrace what my next step is. And so I learned to go with caution because I see that my body is sensitive and that I need the time. But I don't look at it anymore. And that's, I think, my most recent time when I actually raised my prices. I think that's what it was. Like I noticed that not necessarily am I going to be the one to take on like that overloaded client load, but yet if I could make each sale worth its value, then I'll know that I'm doing my best, making the money I'm meant to be making, and also have time for myself. So that's something that I'm always doing the work. I think it's the only way forward and the only way upwards.
I'm going to share something with you in a second that's interesting. But as we grow our businesses and we hold space for more clients, then we as the CEO also need to have more support just for ourselves because we are caring more. We're carrying our family. I mean, we have husbands, right? We have our partners and then we have our clients. So you were talking about, you get in touch with your inner child, your little girl. And just today I was working with my life coach and we were doing the same work with me, right? Like having compassion for my little girl and all that. So it's like, and it's the same work and we keep doing it as we grow and expand. Then our like, little, I call it the little girl. Some people call it the inner child. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but she can get a little bit feisty. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
she
so
wants
it's
to be
important.
heard, that's for sure.
Wants to
But
be heard. Yeah. Yeah. She
I think
definitely
also
does.
the beauty for me that I've seen in my life, besides for just my business growing and my availability to more women out there, is that I've also expanded my personal life. I took up learning an instrument after many years of wanting to, and I thought like
Nice.
I'll never be good at this. And I'm like, this is so enjoyable. I love it. It's like it's an outlet for me. It adds so much depth to my life. Like that's one thing I feel like also this broadening of like your horizons. I see how it affects even my parenting, like to see more of the emotions, especially teenagers. Like they have
Yeah, oh,
so
that's
many
the spectrum of emotions, right? When we're little, like
exactly.
we teach our little kids, there's mad, glad, sad, and bad, right? But then we can
Right.
expand it, and you can go online and you can like download whether it's 22
Right.
emotions or 52 emotions, right? You can get
Whatever. They're all
a list
there.
of a bunch of emotions, right? And the more we can experience all the different colors, right? Of like the happiness and the joy. In Hebrew, we have so many words, Gila, Rida, Ditza, Chedva, like we have so
Right,
many
right,
for
right.
all of those happy emotions. And then also on the sad, right? Whether it's the sadness, the grief, the mourning, there's frustration, annoyance, whatever they are. But when we expand our capacity to feel positive emotions, we also expand our capacity to feel negative emotions. And it just allows us to have more of a human experience, which is what we're here for. I mean, David Amelech, right? King David in the Psalms in Tehillim, he has all of the emotions. And I also want to just point out from a practical point of view, because you talked about, growing as a business owner and making more money. And I love the fact I didn't know you were learning an instrument, but that's fabulous. As our children grow up, it's not like they have less financial needs. I mean, God willing, your
Right.
children you're going to want to help them to get married, to
Yeah.
establish their own families, and that,
Exactly.
thank God it costs money. And then I think it's also important because, you mentioned when, various stages of your life that you were living like month to month and it was a struggle and the debt from the clothing business, right? And we don't know, first of all, God willing, we should all be healthy and we should never need to, take money out of savings to support ourselves. At some point at 85 or 90 or, to 120, but you might not want to be a lactation consultant anymore.
Right.
You might not want to get at 10 o'clock at night and go help someone who's, a struggling young
Right.
mother trying to
Right.
nurse her babies. But we need
Mhm.
money for retirement also. That's also part of our, life cycle is that at some point, whether it's half time or full time or whatever, we might want to play more with our grandkids, God willing, and spend less
That's
time in
right.
our businesses. So
That's
we
right.
will need money, for our future selves as well. So how has your relationship with money changed since you've joined Wired for Well?
I didn't even know how many thoughts I had around money. What was interesting for me to notice was that I grew up not knowing if my father had a lot of money or not. Like I would hear from other people, like, "Oh, your father donated this or donated that." It was a very strange, detached type of a feeling. Like, is it good that he donated it? Is it not? Like, it wasn't like clear to me. I didn't understand if this is a good thing. I was being looked down on, if I was being looked up to. And so I think that I came into my adult years with a lot of confusion. But one thing is for sure, I did have this very strong feeling that money was just always running away from me. And no matter how much you have, it's going to be gone so soon. And like, what's the point of trying to replenish it? And that graspiness and the feeling of needing to hold on to every dollar is just something I could still feel in my body. So I think that what has changed for me is the knowledge. Number one, like it has taken a certain level, like these blinders off my side of my eyes that like there's such a huge world out there.
Mm-hmm.
And like Hashem owns the entire world. He has no reason to hold on to most of it and give me only a little bit. Like it's all his. Like,
Right.
and so this feeling of being able to go into the abundance and notice, I think that's maybe the most important step for me to notice when I'm in the scarcity mode, not to judge it, when it comes up, when I feel like my shoulders literally like tense up, when I see that I have money in the bank and I'm like, am I deserving? Am I worthy? Well, I know how to spend it. I have this thing like women are not supposed to be so busy with the money. Like there's so many of those thoughts that come in. So my goal is to keep growing and to notice those thoughts and triggers like quicker and earlier. But what I could just be so grateful for is that definitely I have started to look at money as purely a beautiful expansion of life, expansion of what's possible, an expansion of what we deserve. And that's just how I look at it. Like when I'm looking at something and I'm like, do I want to, like, why am I feeling constriction around this when it comes to the price? Then it's just like, is this something that's going to expand my life and add more beauty, add more joy, add more time, add more possibilities, add more dimensions? Like that helps me to be able to go into that flow of that feeling that it's not about the dollars and cents. And I even started to feel it when I speak to my clients. Like in the beginning, it was hard for me to get the words out of my mouth, how much I charge. And now it's just like, this is my price. And 95% of the time, people are like, okay, that's fine. Like, that's your price. And what I started noticing very interestingly is that in the beginning, you helped me set up a system where I should have clients' credit card numbers in order to book the appointment because I had
Correct.
some
Yep.
situations where I was chasing people for money. That was hard, hard, hard for me. Like, I'm demanding, all that. And it was hard for me to get the words out. But once that became easier and easier for me by doing the mindset work, like getting into my thoughts. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? It doesn't even come into my mind anymore. Like, oh, remember to ask if they want me to charge their card. They actually offer to me, oh, you have my card, right? You can charge it, or they'll just offer me
Amazing.
cash, which is an amazing
Amazing.
shift. And I just noticed it recently because like even though I know and I trust that if I say it to them, they'll respect me and I need to say it and whatever. But there's just something about being able to be totally focused on what I'm here to serve, and for them to feel that so strongly that they're just like, oh, we want to pay you. Like that's what it feels like, you know, like it feels like it became such a big shift for me. I was like, hey, like they're remembering that they have to pay me. I looked at that as a big shift in my energy around money and my thoughts around money.
That's beautiful. It's just like whatever you're projecting
Mm-hmm.
is a trust of money, a trust of your clients, but there's something in the way you are, yeah, your vibe, your aura, the way,
Mm-hmm.
that's picked up, perceived by your clients. And it could also be just a different type of client. As we raise our prices,
Yeah.
we
Mm-hmm.
also often work with different types of clients, right? If you walk
Yes.
into a jewelry store, into Tiffany's, it's going to be a different type of client than if you go to the wholesale, store down in the Diamond District or something like that. It will
100%.
be, it will be a different client, and that's okay. There are clients for every store.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you're saying that the level of the client, like the type of client, because I just realized while you're talking, this is actually my first month in 10 years that I'm not employed by an agency. So it's my first
Yay!
month that I'm just going to look at the numbers, whatever they are, and whatever's coming, and rejoice in them and be grateful for them. That letting go of a certain type of client and welcoming in a new one. Yeah, I could relate to that a lot.
Beautiful. So is there anything else that you'd like to share, for anybody who's on, who's listening, anything
Yeah.
about Wired for Wealth, anything else about your work they'd like to share? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that what I want to share is that people tell me all the time that I give off a very calm vibe, a very, soothing energy. And I really want to share with people like that, like I do a lot of work. It does not come naturally to me. Like I can naturally go into like change my mindset, but it's not like I was born, like in the meadow or something and like
Mm.
I admire people, other people who do work. I don't expect, like I always say to people, none of us have a monopoly on our challenges in life or our struggles, what we go through. We all have what we go through and we all have
Right.
what we need in order to keep building. And so, like, I tell people, if I could do it, I was scared stiff when I started. Like, just like when I started playing my instrument, like the same thing. Like, how on earth am I going to figure this out? Like, how are my fingers going to move so smoothly? How am I going to pull this all together? And I'm very transparent in saying that not every part of my life is perfect. Like, I'm saying like this perfect homemaker and like I get my laundry in exactly when I want to or my supper in whenever. And that's fine. Like, I just choose to focus on what is working and that when I am in front of my client, when I am there to serve, I know what I want to bring them. And so that helps me to keep doing the work so that I could bring them. Like so many times I'll be in my car and I like need a breathe. It wasn't an easy day, client number, whatever. And I just keep my mind on what I want to bring them. And I know that I'm supported. Being a Wired for Wealth for me has been a support, like building my business. Like I just never thought so. And I was very pleasantly surprised and grateful. It's amazing to see other women and watch other women's stories unfold. I'm sure it's interesting for them to see mine, and it's interesting for me to see theirs. Like to watch other women, I know they're in my stage, they have little kids pulling at their skirts, and they're just like committed to this process, which is really growing us as women. Like we're serving the community, like we're serving other
Yeah.
women. That's really something that has added just so much value to my life, really.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I will, for anybody who's listening, I do want to emphasize that we think that business is all strategy, 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 strategy. Tell me what to do. But that inner work is really where the rubber meets the road, right? It's really, there's so much, especially as women, especially as moms, especially, right? It's actually, I think the business is probably one of the biggest life tests of our inner work because all the frustrations, each client has a different personality and some of them are harder. Some of them are easier. Some of them want a refund. Some of them are going to have criticism. Some of them will reject us, right? Sometimes we'll send an email and people will unsubscribe. So yeah, that inner work is, I don't know, is it 50%, 80%, 90% of business?
It's a
But it's,
lot.
it's a lot.
It's a
It's
lot.
a lot.
Sometimes you get phone calls that you love, like people call you and like someone once sent me a picture of her maybe like 7 or 8 month old and she said, just want to send you regards from my little princess. And I was like, it's so heartwarming. And sometimes I get phone calls that I don't love so much. And I think that when you talk about growth and how much is involved in the work of how much of it is mindset work and thought work, I think it's so much more than we could put value on. Like when I see my own self growing, someone will call me and say like they want a different price or they want it, and the ease with which I can see it and move on, let them go, send them their love. Like more than anything, not holding on and weighing ourselves down with those heavy, unnecessary emotional drama. Like that is like just really the result of all that mind work. Like, and that's, I don't think you could put a number on it. Like, I think it's just most of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Tell us quickly where, if somebody is looking for, whether it's a lactation consultant, someone who you do your coaching like online, right? On Zoom?
Yeah. The easiest way for someone to reach me if they're local is my cell number, texting or voicemail. That's 917-794-0061. And someone that's not local, then I have my email address. It's the second best way to reach me. And that's HFTS. That's my business name, Heart from the Start. So H, F as in Frank, T as in Tom, S as in Sam, lactation, HFTS lactation @gmail.com.
All right. We'll put it in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with me today, Raizy. It's really, really a pleasure.
It was wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I know that you're going to agree with me that was a full episode. There was so much wisdom and so much growth. And you just hear Raizy's like calm voice. I know that if you're a new mother, you would just love to have her at your side. I know that when I had my babies back in the day, my baby is 16 and a half, having that warm, loving, compassionate voice near me would have been a game changer. My first was a great nurser, but I had some of my later kids that maybe had a little bit of struggle, and it would have been so much relief and compassion having someone like Raizy at my side. So if that is what you are looking for in your life and with your new baby, make sure you check out Raizy's details in the show notes. And I want to remind you that enrollment for Wired for Wealth is now open until March 18th. And when you join now, you are joining the #1 coaching program for Jewish women in the industry. And we will help you change your relationship with money, sell as a service to your client. I believe that sales is sacred and spiritual for you and the people that you are here to serve. And of course, I want you to double your income in the next 90 days. I will personally onboard you with a one-on-one coaching call so that we can figure out your strategy and your roadmap to get you going. So go to my website now, debbiesasson.com/wealth, and look at the program. All the details are laid out there. And of course, on that website, you can sign up for a sales call. And I look forward to seeing you inside. I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast. If you want to stop underselling and under-earning and close more sales, you need to clear the limiting money beliefs that are sabotaging your business growth. Head on over to debbiesasson.com/mindset and download my free Money Mindset Workbook. Uncover and dissolve money blocks like hundreds of other entrepreneurs who are now building 6, multi-6, and 7-figure businesses and creating true financial freedom.